AFCI, arc fault circuit interrupter protection. There's a whole list of places. I know they'd like to make that code a little smaller by just saying, receptacles, 15 and 20 amperes. If you take a look at the graphic, which is a great graphic, which I want to do on GFCIs also, is if you take a look at that, you can see what? Don't need AFCI protection in bathrooms. Don't need it in stairways. Don't need it in bathrooms. Don't need it on porches. Don't need it on garages. So these guys got a little more market share they can pick up there. Yes, Eric.
Yep, they missed attics.
Ooh, crawls. How about basements? Is basement in there? Basements don't need, basement, hold on. Bedrooms, closet, dens, living room, dining room, family room. Well, yeah, okay, attics for sure, but not the basement. I'm not sure. Unfinished basements, maybe.
Well, I was going to say, because if the basement's finished, that'd be a similar area probably.
Yeah, but if it's unfinished basement, don't need AFCI protection, it looks like. But they'll fix that in 2020. Now, the type of protection that's required on 210.12a is by a listed combination AFCI breaker. There is no other way when you're installing a new installation other than to use a listed AFCI combination AFCI breaker. Cannot use a receptacle. Now, okay, but Mike, wait a minute now. There are exceptions, so there are provisions. Okay, all right, fine. If you, in Chicago, they run EMT on all the wiring and dwelling units. And the code says that if the first receptacle has an AFCI protection device, you can use an AFCI receptacle as long as you wired it with pipe to the first receptacle. Well, if you wired a whole house of pipe, well, then you don't have to have an AFCI breaker. Put an AFCI receptacle.
Perfect.
Okay? I'm not sure the advantage is because now you can't. They have to be, by the way, GFCIs have to be readily accessible. Guess what happens to the AFCIs? We don't have this rule here. We need to make sure it's in the graphic. AFCI protection devices have to be what? Readily accessible. Maybe that receptacle is behind a wall somewhere. I mean, behind an appliance, behind a bed, behind a dresser. I'm not sure how inspectors would handle that.
Hey, listen, when I got my inspection, there wasn't any furniture, so it's not my problem.
That'll work. Okay, then that'll be true. So now, but AFCI receptacles could be used at the first outlet of the circuit if you ran it with EMT or if you ran it with a metal wiring method like MC cable or armor cable. So assuming you're not running MC, armor cable, or EMT in a building, but you're running other wiring methods, well then you'd have to use an AFCI breaker. But you could use a receptacle at the first point of outlet for those other applications. Okay, what's the issue here? Well, if you have a parallel fault, or you have wires that are kind of like, for some reason, a staple was driving down too tight, and then all of a sudden we have a fire. If you take a look at this picture here, it kind of shows energy. Take a look at that energy in the event of a fault versus that one. You can see one is a lot more energy than the other. It's a matter of time and how quick they operate. Right here it shows this breaker is on. That's the energy. You can show this is now AFCI. Not a good picture. Sorry about that. I stole this from Cutler Hammer many years ago, so I have to get them to get me a better one if they have that. And then you can see the energy is diminished. So AFCI protection provides a much greater level of protection for dwelling units as requirements now. It's a computer. It's a microprocessor. Now, in my house, I have dual function GFCIs and AFCIs on all single pole circuits. All two pole circuits are all GFCI protection, except I cannot have GFCI protection for my condensers, my air conditioning condensers. And then we looked at the nameplate label of my condenser, and my air conditioning condenser, it operates off of DC. I don't know. We got to talk about that in 440, how that works off of that. Yeah. But there's something going on with my air conditioning condenser operating off of DC, and then I have GFCIs are tripping. So I had to take the breakers off of that. We'll talk about that in the video number 4. So you want to know what that's all about? Well, hang on. Get back. We'll talk about that in 440. Probably about right in the beginning of 440 inside here. So back to here. Here is your electronic device. Now, let me just close up because I'm afraid I'm going to forget this. Because all my breakers are dual rated, GFCIs and AFCIs, all my two-pole breakers are GFCIs except which won't hold. Oh, there's another, I have a single-pole breaker, actually violation of code right now. I have a single-pole breaker that's not GFCI protected, and it's not AFCI protected, which handles the lights in my garage. Because I have the T5 light fixtures. These are commercial light fixtures, and commercial light fixtures installed in a residential occupancies have apparently a higher leakage threshold than they would in residential. And so I couldn't get I couldn't get the dual rated breaker to hold. So I just went ahead and put a regular single pole breaker, and I'm going to fix that. Okay, so I got to change that to find out, will an AFCI, single AFCI dual rated combination work? Will a GFCI work on those light fixtures? You know, what happens? So we're having now, but here's the problem. My wife is not happy with my breakers at all. I can't tell you how many times my breakers are tripping. I'm sure while I'm gone for this trip here, we're gone for 7 days recording, I'm sure there's breakers tripping in my house. When I'm home, they don't trip, just so you know. But when I'm gone, they always trip. And then she tells me, she's on the phone and she's freaking out, and she'll tell me, it's flashing 5 times red. And I'm like, babe, it's fine. No, you don't understand. I said, babe, it's okay. But it's flashing. Why is it flashing? I said, babe, it's a code that tells you, but you don't need to know what the flash means. She goes, why is this tripping? Before I met you, I never had a breaker trip in my life. Well, I don't need to go there. I'm just simply saying. And now I'm getting involved in all these cases, people getting, well, I've always been, but I get involved in cases. I told you about the swimming kid getting pulled in the swimming pools and all the people dying all the time. And she's like all stressed out about all these people dying in electricity. And I look at her, I'm like, and then she goes, is our house safe? I said, look, I'm my cult. She goes, no, I understand, but is our house safe? You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, fine. All right. Our house is safe. I says, it's so safe, we have dual function GFCIs, AFCIs on every single one, and there's 2 pole breakers. I'm telling the whole story. And I says, and you know what? That's why they trip all the time. Because for me to get the benefit, right, of having protections for ground fault, benefits arc fault, it's an electronic devices, it's reactive to the environment. I'm going to start marking down which breakers are tripping and when they're tripping. Because I got a feeling there's clouds, there's humidity, there's time of the year. And so I wanted to get all the breakers like this, and I was very fortunate. Eaton Cutler Hammer provided me the first batch of dual function breakers, and that allows me to be able to test it out. So those of you that might be using dual function, it doesn't matter if it's Eaton or Square D, apparently the same problems. They're going to be tripping. And here's the problem. Oh, here's another one. Ready for this? Put your hand on my panel. You're going to come freaking out, telling me, hey, man, you got a problem with your panel. Your panel is really, really hot. 130 degrees without any loads in my house on is the temperature of my cover. Wow. So you put your hand on there, and you're like, 130 degrees,
it's
just
hot.
so you know. That's warm. That's pretty warm. There are no loads. That's the rating of the processor inside this they're all stacked together, so you have what? You have the heat going on inside here. I can't tell you how many trades that come to my wife, hey, you got a problem with electrical, your panel's awful hot. Because the guy goes in and turn off a breaker, right, to work on something, and they feels the temperature. So now the customer is going to be very much disconcerting because they're thinking, what's going on? Before you guys wired my house, the last house didn't have a problem. Now we're tripping and I want it fixed. And you know what happens? You go in circles, right? You're there for days trying to find out what the problem is. You can't fix this. This is just a technology. That's an issue. And so I've been yelling at Eaton. I'm like, Tom, what are you guys doing here? You're killing me. My wife is all upset with me. So I don't know if it's going to get better or if this is just a new technology that, hey, listen, you just return on the breakers every time they trip. So this is a problem. Brian.
Well, we had issues when AFCIs first came out with them getting very hot. And of course, the manufacturers all denied it vehemently. It's not our problem. We tested this, we tested that. And magically, at some point, it stopped being a problem. And we're having the same problem again. So I have a feeling magically, they're denying it. Oh, it's just the way it's going to be. It'll go away eventually when enough people complain, I think.
I think, it's a learning curve.
Yep.
Okay, new rules, no learning curve. Okay, here's an AFCI receptacle. I did mention you could use AFCI receptacles. Take a look at the code if you want to use that. Look at the restrictions and when you can for a brand new installation. Replacing receptacles, and that's a different story. AFCI receptacle is great for that. We'll talk about that. This is the inside of an AFCI receptacle. Pretty boring, I have to tell you that. I took it apart. And I didn't show you, there's a lot of pieces that are missing in the picture here. You know what I mean? And I took it all apart, now the springs, and I'm bling, 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 bling. And I got in a baggie. Remind me, we got to get a picture of the house. I get the baggie. I couldn't do Rubik's Cube, okay? So I'm sure somebody could put this together. But I found out from Tom that they actually mechanically put this together. A lot of the parts that you don't see, they're all over the parts missing inside here. So you can see, that's an AFCI receptacle. That's AFCI breaker. This is electronics, guys. This is some serious stuff here. Okay, move on. Now, where else do you need AFCI protection besides dormitories? Okay, Michael.
Well, we're looking at the inside of that AFCI breaker, and I'm not seeing an MOV or the arc fault. How are the arc faults doing with the line surges? I mean, we know we have trouble with GFIs.
We saw that picture when we covered the GFCIs and
Right.
100 and the MOVs. And the question is, how are the electronics being protected from the transients? I don't see the MOVs here. And I need to get with the manufacturers and ask them, show me the picture in a receptacle. I mean, I need to get with the receptacle. Maybe by the time it gets down to the receptacle level, the transients are not as bad, or maybe they go
But what
bad.
about the breaker also? I mean, I've
don't
heard
know.
of problems with GFIs, but I've never heard of any problems with AFCIs,
Yep.
breakers or receptacles.
Don't know about the failure rate of these devices at this time. I haven't seen any studies. Brian?
I was just going to say there are other ways to deal with transients besides MOVs. There's other things, and those are very, very small components, so it's very possible they've got it designed into the circuit.
Okay. Ronnie, any questions at all?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's go now to dormitories. Dormitories, brand new rule, require AFCI protection. Now, so it's outlets, guest rooms, guest suites of hotels and motel. What the heck am I? Okay, guest room. Oh, did I cover it wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. Dormitories is B. I didn't cover the graphic. And then you have to have guest rooms and guest suites is a brand new rule. That's going to have AFCI protection, so I expanded quite a bit there. And there's a picture of the guest rooms and guest suites. I think I was thinking I was copying the dormitory rule, and I copied the guest rooms and guest suite rule. And branch circuit extensions in dwelling units and dormitories. In any of the areas specified in A and B, where branch circuit wiring is modified, replaced, or extended, the branch circuit shall be protected by one of the following. So if you're modifying or extending a circuit, then you can use a listed combination AFCI located at the origin of the branch circuit. And I bet you if I go to, Dave, go take a look at 210.12D. Is there anything else beside one? Maybe I didn't copy. What other ways can I protect the branch circuit extension or modification? D1 is a listed combination AFCI. That would be your breaker.
D2 is the listed outlet branch circuit type AFCI.
Okay, so therefore I can put a receptacle. So I
Yes.
failed to copy that because the way code was the bottom of the page. So you can use if you extend the circuit, then you can use a AFCI breaker, combination type, or you can use an AFCI receptacle.